Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 3 of the anime series Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash. And yeah, why am I back here talking about the show again? Quite frankly, it's an oddity. It's a strange thing. I mean, first and foremost, this is my channel. I can talk about whatever I want. Even contrary to my promise in the previous episode discussion video, where I said I would not be watching this show anymore, most likely, and I would not want to talk about it. There's something odd about this show, and I found myself really strongly compelled to share my thoughts on it, and frankly, that's why I'm making videos to begin with. Usually I largely spend all my time in videos talking about things I love. About anime, about comic books, comic book movies, manga, reactions to trailers, Doctor Who, Star Trek, whatever it is, whatever conforms to my fandom, things that I like, things that I have a passion for. And even, like I've found in the last couple seasons, anime seasons, I have found things more that I've not liked and been compelled to talk about for reasons I didn't like. Thinking of Everything Becomes F, The Perfect Insider being the perfect example, because I loathed that series where it's ill pacing and meaningless drivel dialogue, and there's a lot comparable in this series to that for me. The pacing is god-awful in this series. Like, the conversations, there's no momentum. Conversationally, I've found that there is always a momentum, and somehow they make everything bland and seemingly pointless. Like, they fit into the dialogue in this series, meaningful tidbits, little granules, salt-sized granules peppered throughout of the things that are interesting, but then they gloss it over with bland dialogue, and they don't get back to it. The opening sequence between, I don't even know the characters by name. The only one I know by name thus far is Ranta, because he is outspoken and annoying. He's the only memorable character. The rest of them, you could interchange most of them with other characters. I probably wouldn't notice, by and large. But you got the big bulky guy who's cooking, and you got the MC who comes in, and their whole exchange, his asking bulky cook dude whether he enjoys cooking food or eating it more, and he has some hints, toward the world they came from again. Like, I think I liked making food for people, whether they liked that food or not. It was just the making of the food and everything is like, that's interesting. Can we more of that? No. Because then the pot boils over. And his reaction is, oh. When a pot is sitting on my stove and it's boiling over, I run. There's momentum, there's action, there's a reaction. Not here. And then the sort of most interesting aspect of the dialogue tapers off, and we don't reference it again. And it's just, it's like the conversations, the dialogue hangs in the air. It's almost like a student film where the editing is so bad. Like, to be dramatic, they have pauses and long sort of holding on dialogue, like letting it taper off and settle in to the mind of the viewer, but nothing is being said, so why let it settle in? It's like, oh, hi, hello, did I interrupt you? Were you thinking about anything in particular? No. But I do have thoughts. What are those thoughts? Oh, the pot boiled over. That's what I'm getting, largely, from this series. That kind of lack of momentum. But that's not even why I wanted to talk about this episode. Why I wanted to talk about this episode is the really underridden, off-putting vibe I'm getting. Like, we start off with Ranta and the other guys, all the other guys apologizing for something they didn't do, they weren't involved in. They were trying to stop him from peeping on the girls in the bathhouse, wearing towels and such anyway, so nothing was seen, thankfully. But of course they naturally, and it's not wrong for them to feel like they were encroached upon, and that whole exchange was kind of stupid and pointless. because of course Loranta, being a juvenile ignoramus, he doesn't see what he did wrong, and then he accidentally cops to it, and then he's mystified why the one chick is mad at him anyway, even though she said she wasn't going to be, and all that stuff, whatever. But in answer to this, you know, the sort of minutia of this world, the idea that their clothing, you know, they had to get really cheap clothing, and the clothing is wearing down over time as they're going out hunting goblins. The only real interesting factor was, again, the goblin attack as they're sort of strategizing around this one little town that is a goblin hub, I guess, and they're going after single goblins. But again, I'm not liking that they have to, like, viciously murder these things, and they actually are satisfied that they managed to do one while he was sleeping, you know? Like, gee, let me root for you guys. But that whole idea of MC's cleaning his underwear, and he's, you know, his internal monologue is telling us that because these clothes are wearing down, the guy's got to go commando. And, you know, once he's done, you got the timid girl who has the sort of self-disdain issues, very self-conscious about herself, very timid, like to the point of, is she going to have a mental breakdown if somebody breathes on her the wrong way? You know, and she has a crush subsequently on the like tallest guy, the eldest guy, I guess, the priest healer dude, whatever he is. But, you know, like there's that exchange where the MC suddenly finds himself thinking, well, if we got to go commando, what about the girls? And he's starting to peek in at her, and it's really weird. And the other girl shows up and almost catches him, but doesn't think he's doing anything bad. And this was after their really awkward, like, talk in the woods about, well, it wasn't all right for Loranta to do it. If you had been the one, I mean, at least you would have apologized, and so it would have been better than if it were like. No, it's not good in any way, shape, or form for these guys to be encroaching upon your privacy like that. Not good. Doesn't matter if it's the nice, likable guy, the calm, sort of, you know, rational-minded guy. If he's doing it, he's a perv. He's a dick too, you know. So, like, I don't know, facepalm with that one. But he's afraid of getting caught. He goes to leave, and there's Loranta finally wanting to do his own laundry because he's Mr. Stinky Pants. You know? And MC's like suddenly backpedaling. He's like, no, it's raining. It's going to be pointless, blah, blah, blah. What I'm talking about, what I'm zoning in on in this particular frame of reference is how MC is suddenly uber critically aware of the rapiness of the situation. Like, if any of these guys see the girls in their skimpies, the clothes they have to wear when they're at home, when they're not out hunting and everything, rapiness everywhere. Is this, like, is that a natural reaction? I mean, I know you want to be protective of the girls. You want to see to their well-being and everything. He's an honorable guy in that estimation. But just the vibe, the depiction of it was very disconcerting. And it seemed to be, because he was catching a peek at timid girl as well, it seemed to be like his own internal thing. Like, you know, I'm attracted to the girls. We can't let any of the guys see the girls because they might be like me. They might be rapey. We're supposed to root for these characters. Woohoo! Win the day. Kill goblins. Murder them, you know, in their sleep. Spy on girls. Get rapey around them. Or, in his case, be fearful everyone else will get rapey around them because that's what you're feeling internally. You're feeling very turned on by these girls. You know, it's like, puberty, is that a thing? I mean, even if we consider the sort of Japanese culture that is, you know, at least to the Western world, the way they handle things like romance and being with others and showing affection in public and even in private and everything that I've come to learn anyway, even if it's somewhat strange when viewed from the outside as it is the Western looking at the Eastern world, the Japanese culture, this was just weird. It was just really weird to me how he reacted and the way it was shown. And, then calling back on Mr. Priest dude, you know, they're so grateful. MC is so grateful this guy is a part of their party. Like, he's never had any inkling to look at anyone else. And again, I'm getting real disconcerting vibe. Now, I don't know if it's just a product of the poor pacing in the show, or if I'm really reading that something malevolent and or ominous is coming where that guy is concerned, where Mr. Priestley Healer dude is concerned. But suddenly I'm getting vibe like, who was he in the former world? Is he like a murderer rapist? Is that why Timid Girl is attracted to him? And it seems as though the hints, at least, or the poor translation in the pacing is going to be like she's going to get too close to him and his true colors are going to come out and all hell's going to break loose. I mean, I don't know if that's just me reacting to the off-putting pacing and the off-putting emphasizing. I was talking to my sister about this, and she perfectly encapsulated it like in this term where they are overemphasizing the underemphasizing of things that actually have a point or are interesting or matter. They are making everything that is actually intriguing that much more underwhelming, at least to me. I've heard people describing this show as being very calm and soothing to sit back and watch and just bask in the glow of, but man, is it macking on me with very disconcerting vibes. And I don't know if it's because of the almost inhuman dialogue, the pacing of the dialogue, and the character interplay and interactions. It's like, is everybody half asleep? I mean, I alluded to this in my episode 2 discussion video, but while the musical montage was going on in the previous episode, I was actually looking longingly at a book. I found myself actually wanting to read a book more than have to watch the show. And now this episode, no musical montage, same effect. I was like, the process of reading, using my imagination and reading words on a page, not a picture book, is more interesting, more investing, and more engaging so far, for me personally as an individual, than this show. And I want to put out there right away, if you're having a complete opposite reaction to me, I'm not judging you. I don't want you to think like, I'm looking down upon anyone who enjoys this series. If you can get enjoyment out of it, the more the merrier, more power to you. I almost envy you because I want to like this. It's something right up my alley. But it's trying its hardest to be bland and boring. At every turn, there's just no momentum, and they're always hanging on dialogue and the spaces between, the pauses between. And it's like I'm struggling to find something interesting. Even the discussion about the clothes and the minutia and earning the coppers to, haggling to get food and clothes and wares and everything like that. Like, people are making that out to be much more interesting than the show is in their discussions of it, to my estimation. They don't spend enough time delving into these fascinating topics. Again, they gloss it over with underwhelming dialogue, passive dialogue, like everything is passive. The only aspect of the episode that picked up a level of momentum was the goblin attack and was the idea of them strategizing. Suddenly I was like, wow, this is kind of like Log Horizon again, where it was interesting, where they were actually adding strategy and making maps and hearing about that. Like, it's one of those things where, they were showing a little more than they were discussing. And when you have a visual medium, like an anime series, like a movie, like a film, don't talk about it, show it. And at least they were showing it there. The rest of the dialogue is amounting to nothing. When they start to just cursorily revolve around things that are going to entice me and draw me closer, whatever holdover memories and sensations they have from the world they came from, man, am I invested. One very poignant sequence was toward the end of the episode when you have Ranta and, Big Cook Dude coming in with the groceries. And we find that Big Cook Dude has carved a goblin statue and he's thinking of selling them. I was like, my God, more of that. He carved a plane in the last episode, and that was fascinating because it tied back to the old world they came from. They don't have, like, there's no concept in them to try to piece together what's going on, and they're just kind of going through, in mundane fashion, things that should be exciting. It should be exciting to me. Them finding their footing in this world, them starting from scratch and really not being able to hold their own. People describe this show as much more entertaining than it actually is in its procession. Like, when I hear people talking about how excited it gets them to see these characters starting at level 0 and having to fight and really having to earn, through murder, through a very disconcerting murdering of a goblin, any sort of, silver coins or coppers or whatever. And now they have to add strategy to that, and they're building up. Like, it sounds so exciting. And I think that's what really captivated me in the week's time where I said I didn't want anything to do with it. I was highly curious to see if there would be a momentum, if we would grow beyond where we were in the pacing and the form and function of the show in episode 3 as compared to the previous 2, which I had large problems with. And this one, much more, did it feel weighed down and going nowhere than even the first 2. Like, I felt there was less for me to grasp onto in this episode than there was in the previous 2. And that's, it's like, I'm surprised, literally, I got through it. I was actually relieved when the end credits music began, because I was like, oh my god, I didn't think this was ever going to end. And it's just the really crap pacing. I mean, if people are taking that calm and soothing, fine, awesome. No judgment towards you whatsoever. But I was really compelled to come on and talk about that, that disconcerting rapiness of MC's worries for these girls. Like, is this how corrupt a world they're living in? Like, is this a genuine concern? Could guys really assault these girls or be motivated to? Shouldn't that take a little more emphasis as being a concern instead of sort of passing it off as girls might get raped? Let's go get Stinky Guy to not wash his clothes. And again, with, white mage dude, priest dude, it's like, is it just the fact that he's a priest that I'm thinking there's something ill about him? I don't know. But it seems weird. He seems too passive, too calm, too likable, not in the same rationalized sense as the MC. I feel like there is something bad about that dude, and it's just waiting to rear its ugly head. I can't believe I'm talking about this show for 18 minutes. What can I say? If you're a fan of this show, understand, I want to have a discussion. I want to understand what it is about this show. I genuinely want to know what it is, why people may see this as enticing, as captivating, where I just don't, and I really feel off-put by it. And the pacing is not calm, it's very disconcerting and unnatural. I mean, if you've ever seen the film 1 Hour Photo, they do this for effect in that film. They purposely want to have you feeling off-put because it's a psycho thriller. This show shouldn't be a psycho thriller in vibe if it's supposed to be a mystical, magical world where characters are somehow taken out of a world of old and trying to find their place and having holdovers and having to deal with these things. Like, people make it sound like it's just the most magical and rapturing experience. It's such a glory to bask in. And I'm watching it and I'm just like wearing a grimace, like, what? It's so weird. It's so odd. It doesn't feel good at all. And what's more, there are really perturbing sensations while watching it from the really bad pacing in the dialogue, from there being almost nothing of worth being spoken in the dialogue, characters not doing much. The only good times that I see being depicted is when they are doing things, and there's so little of it. So, yeah, that's my take on Grimgar, Fantasy and Ash, Episode 3. And, I don't know, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment enough to be back here for Episode 4. Maybe not, I don't know. Really taking this episode by episode and just seeing if I have any sort of compelling feelings, to want to discuss anything about it. And time will tell. We shall see. I don't know. I've been rambling for 20 some odd minutes. Hope this video finds you well. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Yada yada. Hit that dislike as many times as you need, and catch you later. Peace.